You're listening to a Raconteur Studios podcast.
Hello and welcome to the After Hours Skin Clinic. I'm your host, consultant dermatologist, Dr. Emma Craythorne, and this is the place where we answer all of those questions whenever the clinic doors are actually closed. Today, we've got Dr. Ellie with us.
Hello.
Now, I don't know if you know this, but it's Women's History Month. So in this episode, I thought it might be quite a nice idea to look back through history and think of all of those things that people used to do in the name of beauty over the years.
I think this will be super fun because women did some weird and wonderful stuff to themselves.
The first one is about foreheads. In the Middle Ages, it was felt that if you had a very big forehead, that was a sign of youth and beauty and success. What do you think of that?
Well, as a small forehead person...
Yeah, it is really small. I think I've quite a big forehead.
No.
It's just average.
I think it's average.
Okay. So I think there was quite different things that people did to give this impression of having a big forehead, because in reality, the forehead should come down to, is it 1/3 of the face?
1/3, yeah.
But they would pluck their hair at the front of the hairline so that it would go all the way back. So you would see that very top part. So right to the very top of the oval, you would see from essentially the eyes all the way up to the very top of this egg-shaped oval.
Like an oval-shaped face.
Yeah. So women would pluck this hairline so that the ratio was absolutely perfect. They also plucked their eyebrows almost completely off to accentuate the width of their foreheads.
Well, that's sort of become fashionable now with people bleaching their eyebrows.
I feel like that was maybe last year. I feel like these trends.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, Miss 2025.
Yeah, that was 2024.
We're only 3 months in.
But, you know, there were periods where it was fashionable to have super, super thin eyebrows.
Yes.
Or no eyebrows, pretty much. Or you shave them all off and then paint them on.
Yeah, those tiny little slither that you'd put on with eyeliner.
Some of the more extreme methods of hair removal included grinding eggshells and boiling them in water to form a paste. The lady would then rub this onto her hairline, presumably to exfoliate away the hair, or even weirder, cat's dung in vinegar to exfoliate the hair away. I mean, that's going to be very smelly. But I have seen worse on TikTok, to be fair.
I know exactly what you're going to say. The feces facial.
Feces facial, yeah.
Like, honestly, what on earth?
Well, this might end up being something then that in future centuries they'll look back and say, oh my goodness, did you know that in 2025 they used to use feces to have a facial, and they used to inject salmon sperm into their faces, and yeah, we do that. We actually do.
No, we don't. No. Wait, hold up. Wait a minute. Rewind.
We don't do that.
We definitely don't do the feces facial.
Our society can do that. But it shows you that some of the ridiculous things that we do now, when we look back at history and we think how ridiculous that was that they were doing that, you know, at the time you're not thinking it's ridiculous at all. You're just following the goal, then the trend of how to get to the goal. And because you've got this contagion of society all wanting to do it.
And telling you that that's the beautiful thing to do, that we need to try and achieve.
So you end up plucking your hairline, lightening your eyebrows, removing your eyebrows, just so that you can have your big forehead.
No, thanks. It's so funny. Back then, you would pluck your hairline so it was further back. And now when you think about some of those hair loss conditions where you get recession of your hairline, so for example, in women and in men with their female and male pattern hair loss, or if you think about that inflammatory condition, frontal fibrosing alopecia, where you get this scarring alopecia in the front of your hairline, recedes and goes backwards, that is definitely not something that people consider a sign of beauty.
I wonder, was it that back in those days there was somebody who had frontal fibrosing alopecia and they were in a position of really great prominence? So perhaps
Maybe.
that is why that was then seen as this sign of beauty, because they had this skin disease and they lost all of the hair follicles at the front of their scalp.
Yeah, and they lose their eyebrows as part of having that condition.
It is people who are in these positions of power or positions of aspiration that form a trend.
Yeah.
And then perhaps that is the trend of why
Kim
that
Kardashian. 。 So I know that in the Victorian era, they would try to achieve this very pale look, so completely white complexion. And in order to look even more translucent, they would draw on with a blue pencil over where veins were to give the appearance of translucency.
Isn't that crazy?
It's so interesting.
Whereas we laser these veins off now because people do not want to have these blue veins shown.
Yeah.
You know, we'll laser off blue veins, particularly on the back of the legs.
Around the eyes.
Periorbital ones. There's often a vein that sits on a kind of diagonal side just beside the lower part of our eyelid skin, and people often want to have that removed. But yet, in those days, they would have been drawing it on.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's actually a painting of that, and this one particular painted woman, Virginie Gautreau. She is known as Madame X. It's John Sargent's painting. You can see the blue kind of dotted along her veins to give her even more of a corpse-like appearance, and therefore the sign of beauty. So effectively, you were just beautiful if you were dead. I look forward to that.
And now we think about how the trend has changed, where people are wanting to achieve this bronzed skin complexion. We were talking about it earlier. Things are changing again, and people are really embracing their pale skin and being really pleased to have healthy looking pale skin, to embrace their natural skin colour.
I think that's right. But no matter what, people often will want to change what their skin colour is. You look at Queen Elizabeth I, who had very pale skin as it was, but she didn't just want it pale, she wanted it alabaster white. You know, it had to be as white as possible. And I remember in my history lessons thinking, you know, how ridiculous that you're using these lead-based paints on your face that are so toxic that can ultimately contribute to why you've died. It's just crazy.
Well, yeah,
but then in our society, people want to have a tan, and they will still use sunbeds. They will physically tan their skin as much as they can and actually induce skin cancer changes as a consequence of that. So we sometimes do look back and think, oh, we'd never do something so toxic.
Yeah,
but actually
we sort of do it in a different way.
It's happening, yeah.
Have you read about the arsenic wafers that women would ingest? So essentially you'd have arsenic, which is a poison, and it would destroy your red cells, and you would look quite pale and anemic as a result.
Because you were anemic.
Because
you had no blood.
Because you literally no blood. And that was the desired look. Or bloodletting, again, to achieve anemia, to look pale.
So this idea that you are poisoning yourself, you're killing all of your red blood cells just so that your skin can be as pale as possible.
Yeah.
That's what happened.
Yeah.
What's really funny is that we're often following trends on TikTok or get ready with me's or this is what you must do with very little scientific evidence behind it at all, or, you know, trying to fix skin problems or achieve a certain goal with following advice from just lots of different people that don't necessarily have the kind of skills to give you that advice. And one of these things that I find really interesting is if you look at one of these beauty advice columns from way back in Victorian England, it talks about how to do the no makeup. Okay, so we think now what we do for no makeup, but this was no makeup in Victorian England times. So in order to keep the face fresh, at night time you would put opium onto your face before you go to sleep. Then when you're waking up, you put a brisk wash of ammonia in the morning. And then if you didn't have much in the way of eyebrows or eyelashes, you can put some mercury ointment onto your eyes. And because at that time this look of consumption was incredibly desirable, then that's whenever they would have these arsenic wafers, which you talked about, where you're essentially killing your red blood cells, so you become anemic and then you look very pale. But also you can put drops in your eyes to give your eyes that kind of red pinky look. So that was also the desirable look, that you looked unwell, this pinkiness to the eyes. And that was done by either putting in some citrus juice or a little bit of perfume, or reaching for some belladonna drops. And belladonna drops were preferred initially, but then they actually caused blindness. So it's really...
Now we've gone the other way. Now you try and get drops to make the white of your eyes as white as possible. People are always looking to sort of have a slightly bronzed complexion. And obviously we're not putting mercury or lead or any other heavy metals on.
Arsenic is like an incredibly toxic compound.
Absolutely. We always talk about how the poison is in the dose. I think with arsenic, even at very small doses, it is poisonous.
Yes, it did used to be used in medicine, but again, in these very, very small doses. But it's really one of these things that are to be completely avoided. It can cause kidney damage, hair loss, conjunctivitis. You get these arsenic kind of keratosis that can build up in the body. Yeah, it's not something that you want to be anywhere near. And mercury in your eyes.
I'll stick with my hourglass makeup. So pimple patches, hugely popular at the moment, hugely, in all shapes. Sometimes they've got different ingredients in it. And these hydrocolloid patches that people will put over a spot to draw the oil out, to stop you from picking a spot. And sometimes they can have ingredients within it to try and help clear up a spot. So, not a recent trend.
No!
Pimple patches date back to ancient Roman times. And they even came in star shapes back in the day.
Oh my goodness.
So in 17th, 18th century, they're using these pimple patches to cover up moles or acne or blemishes. But actually, thinking about moles, now people are drawing on freckles, drawing on moles, as you say. I feel like Cindy Crawford made the mole by the side of your mouth really popular. Loads of people are drawing that on.
Big foreheads, moles.
Yes. It's often someone that makes it famous.
Yeah.
Then everyone
gorgeous.
tries to achieve someone gorgeous often, exactly.
I think whenever you had these pimple patches, well, they weren't pimple patches necessarily then, because you could decide where you wanted to place them on your face, and they would come in different shapes. So it's a bit like the fashion of where you would draw on a beauty spot or something. So this was, placing a little sticker on your face, and depending on where you placed the sticker, it meant different things. So it was a way of suggestion. So if you place it near your mouth, it might suggest that you were quite flirty. Why have you got two by your mouth, Ellie? Ready for tonight. So if they were making these pimple patches back in the 17th and 18th century, obviously we make them now out of hydrocolloid. What do they make them out of?
So they would make them out of silk. They would get these little patches of silk, and then they would stick it onto the skin using resin from the mastic tree. And then they would cover up their blemishes, spots, moles,
scars, anything they didn't want to show.
Anything that they didn't want to show using this method.
I love it.
And I love that.
We think, have you heard the new thing about pimple patches?
Yeah. Oh my God, have you seen? Look at this new one.
So 17th century. So back in the 1870s, there is a column essentially. So we think now of when we want to get advice from skincare or wellness or beauty. Well, there was a papers published and they were called the Ugly Girls papers.
Aww.
Or Hints for the Toilet.
Hints for the toilet.
Yeah. And that was back in the 1870s. And it essentially was just ways in how you could live your life. Presumably, if they felt that you thought you were an ugly girl, how you could be more beautiful. It's crazy, isn't it?
It's crazy.
I do like how it starts. The first requisite in a woman towards pleasing others is that she should be pleased with herself.
Oh, I do like that.
One of the craziest things in pursuit of youthfulness whenever we think back through history was that Tudor women actually applied puppy juice as a toner to their faces.
This makes me really sad, this story.
Do you know what puppy juice is?
Yes.
It's where they took the youngest and the cutest puppies and they killed them, chopped them up, cooked them with liquids and literally turned the puppy into a serum and put that on their faces.
Yeah, into a toner.
I suppose in a way, when we think about things that are youthful and you apply these to try and help yourself look younger or live younger, a lot of this area of longevity now is something that we probably need to think about because there are places, aren't there, that will take the blood of younger things and put that younger thing blood into an older thing to make the older thing younger. Like that happens. There's a study that looks at mice-to-mice transfusion where they take the blood from a younger mouse and put it into an older mouse and then the older mouse behaves like the younger mouse.
Yeah. Well, it's there is scientific evidence for that being helpful. So Brian Johnson did exactly that. He had a blood transfusion from his son into him and into his father. So this is the guy that wants to live forever. So this whole thing about him wanting to live forever, but is he truly living? Because his life is so regimented and rigid around certain practices in order to live forever. And that's one of the things that he did.
Yeah. So, but oh my gosh, puppy juice as a toner, that's horrendous. Whose job was that? That's like the worst job in the world.
It's heartbreaking.
I mean, and obviously that is never going to be effective. It's probably the worst thing that you could do for your skin. None of that's going to make your skin look younger. Very silly.
Very much so.
Poor puppies. Very sad. So thank you for joining us in the After Hours Skin Clinic. I hope you enjoyed that pretty weird and wonderful tour back through what people used to do in the name of beauty over the years. It also probably makes us question a little bit about some of the things that we might do in pursuit of beauty and youth, and really the importance of thinking about what is science and what is safe. Before we end this episode, we're going to be answering some of the listener questions. So today we're going to answer some questions around vitamin C.
One question we've had is, should we be applying vitamin C to a damp or dry face after we've been cleansing? And the answer is a dry face.
A dry face. So I always tell people, wash your face, pat your face dry, and then apply your vitamin C serum. It gets locked in incredibly quickly in a matter of seconds. So even if you then are swimming or washing your face again, it's actually all locked into place. So dry your face and then pop it on. I've got a question as well about any affordable vitamin C products.
Yeah, so the affordable vitamin C products I normally recommend are things like the Paula's Choice C15 Boost, I think it's called. Then Garnier have a vitamin C serum. Skin Rocks do a nice vitamin C serum, also vitamin C cream. Any other brands?
Well, I suppose it just depends what is affordable, because what is affordable for some is kind of different for others.
Paula's Choice is like 60 quid.
Yeah. For me, my gold standard is always going to be the Skinseuticals brands, just because of the parameters that vitamin C works within. And I understand that it is more expensive than some of the other vitamin Cs. But also, if I'm putting vitamin C on, I want to know that I'm using the right kind of vitamin C. It's got to be in the right solution. It's got to be in the right pH. It's got to be in the right percentage dose to do the job, because you're then not able to necessarily get those outcomes that you see from all of the studies on vitamin C. So I sit quite firmly with the Skinseuticals vitamin C selection, but they are more expensive.
They're
that's
very
for sure.
Expensive, yeah. The Roche-Posay do an L-ascorbic acid, which is a slightly lower percentage than Skinseuticals, but that is more cost effective.
Got a question about, can you use niacinamide alongside your vitamin C?
Yeah, so niacinamide is vitamin B3 and absolutely fine to use alongside your vitamin C. Can't see any issues.
Yeah, and often you'll get these things in the same compounds together, so it's absolutely fine to do that. The only thing I would say about vitamin C is this is something that goes on in the morning and doesn't go on at night time. That's probably the most important thing to say, and not using it alongside products like benzoyl peroxide. So vitamin C is an antioxidant, benzoyl peroxide is an oxidant, so you don't necessarily want to use these two things together, but that's the only thing I can think of that I wouldn't use with vitamin C.
Yeah, the only thing I'd say about vitamin C is the gold standard ingredient that you want on your skin is a tretinoin, and I probably wouldn't introduce vitamin C and tretinoin at exactly the same time. I'd normally establish onto a tretinoin, and then maybe a few months later, then you can start on your vitamin C.
Yeah, I think that's right, because your tretinoin is a vitamin A, and vitamin A itself is a very powerful antioxidant. So you are getting all of that oxidative stress, free radical scavenging from the vitamin A as well. So yeah, I agree. Get that one settled first.
Yeah.
And if that's all okay, then move to the vitamin C. Thank you to Rosella, Mosey and Bronwyn for sending these questions in. So that's all for us now at the After Hours Skin Clinic. Thank you for joining me, Ellie.
I have loved this episode.
And thank you for listening. Take care of yourself and your skin, and don't forget your SPF. See you next time on the After Hours Skin Clinic. As always, this podcast is for informational purposes only and is not a substitute for medical advice. Please consult your healthcare professional before making a change to your treatment.